Story 1. Saying I will do it later has stolen more from me than any mistake ever did. Story 2. I am comfortable in my depression because I am too scared to do the work to be happy. I am working toward it, but a large part of me does not want to. Story 3. Many of my relationships ended because of me. I was the common denominator. I blamed and hurt many people, refused to stop drinking or face my issues, and sabotaged myself a great deal because of that. However, I have been sober for almost 1.5 years. I am in therapy and working on it. Story 4. Realizing I cared more about others than I did for myself. It hits hard when you notice how drained you feel all the time. Story 5. I missed out on a lot of progress by trying to keep my options open. Being afraid to commit to one path does not let you get very far on any of the others. Story 6. I feel awkward and have difficulty making friends. I cannot relate to people around me and struggle to connect. This is very frustrating. Story 7. I react to things very emotionally, often without empirical evidence. I am aware this happens, but my brain automatically jumps to negative conclusions that are painful. Fortunately, this usually happens internally, and I do not often show it to others. I am also a hypocrite. Story 8. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to live with the scar. Story 9. I am lost and I do not know what the hell I am supposed to do with my life. Story 10. 2 things I've learned recently. I don't do well alone. I separated from my wife 6 months ago and recently moved into my own place. The silence is deafening. When I am not at work or occupied by something, I feel completely flat. I ran a half marathon last Sunday and was buzzing with a time of 1 hour and 31 minutes. I really enjoyed it. The moment the medal was placed around my neck, I could not feel anything. I had nothing immediate to look forward to. I have fairly serious body image issues. I spent several years overweight. I carried it relatively well, but people still called me fat. Since the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic, I have started taking better care of myself and have lost 5 stone. I am a competent runner and I love racing because my fitness lets me push myself. But it is never enough. Each time I set a weight goal, I reach it and immediately set another goal for an additional stone. I do not know where it will end. Story 11. I'm the reason my life is unsatisfactory. Once I stop being a people-pleasing coward, things will get better. Story 12. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. Feeling like you have no friends or family and that you're not important can be really painful. Are you thinking about hurting yourself, or are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. In the United Kingdom and Republic of Ireland, Samaritans are available at 116 123. In Australia, Lifeline is 13 11 14. If you are elsewhere, consider contacting local emergency services or visiting befrienders worldwide to find a helpline in your country. If you want, tell me your country and I can help find local resources. I'm here to listen. Story 13. I would like to share this quote someone on the internet shared with me. Jack of all trades is a master of none, but is often better than a master of only one. Story 14. It really doesn't matter what I do or don't do, and that's liberating. Story 15. I am not gifted in any way. I have no talents or special skills. Story 16. That I might die in suffering. There will be no happy ending for me. I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services, for example 911 in the United States, or your local emergency number. In the United States, you can also dial or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are outside the United States, please contact your local emergency services or a local crisis line. If you want, I can help you find support in your area or stay with you while you talk. Story 17. I do not know how to prioritize my own care because I grew up always caring for others. Story 18. It is probably not going to get any better. My path is determined. I am just riding it out until the end. Story 19. I have been using marijuana as an adult pacifier for 12 years, ignoring my issues and trauma, am watching life pass me by. I have been without it for 3 days. Story 20. Maybe my stubborn desire to be a strong, independent woman has left me alone and behind others who chose relationships. Story 21. I have been the one holding myself back more than anyone else ever has. Story 22. Missed opportunities born from fear or inertia have been the wellspring of much of my regret. Story 23. My ethical and political opinions are so different from those of most people that I feel compelled to hide who I am in order to survive. Story 24. The dreams of my youth will never come true. I tried and failed. Time for new dreams. Story 25. That anxiety is an expression of fear, and I have lived in fear for too long. Love is the way. Story 26. I was not as smart as I thought. It is kind of difficult to love me. Story 27. I spent too much time trying to please others instead of myself. Story 28. I am a good person, but I am not highly intelligent and have limited social skills. Story 29. Even when I am correct, I tend to defer to the opinions of others. Story 30. I was using the past as an excuse not to fix myself. I realized the past is not as important as I thought. Story 31. I'm stubborn, lazy, selfish, and often feel stupid. My ego is out of whack and I feel entitled. I'm talking to a therapist about it. Story 32. I am not a very good person to be loved closely by others. Story 33. The abusive family I was born into is the reason I do not have any family today. I have spent my life trying to build a family among people who did not love or care for me because I do not know what it is like when someone truly loves and cares for you. It is like trying to make a cookie out of crumbs, not realizing it is futile. Story 34. I'm alone. I have a wife and a child, but I feel more isolated than ever. I have no real friends and nobody checks on me. I simply exist. Work, home, chores, errands, sleep, repeat. This will probably be the trajectory for the rest of my life. I do well, but I feel lonelier than I ever have, and I don't see it getting any better. Story 35. I believe I am never going to be good enough. No matter how hard I try or how much I do for someone, people will always abandon me. Story 36. It does not matter how much work you put into being healthy if your body decides otherwise. Story 37. I trick myself into truly believing everything is fine until it is not. If I had spoken up and stood my ground sooner, much heartache would have been prevented. Story 38. Because of painful life events, I have little empathy for people who only complain and do not work toward solutions or find ways to manage their problems. Story 39. Being gay in a very religious country and experiencing bullying while growing up have taken a heavy toll on my mental health. They destroyed my confidence and sense of direction. Now I struggle with anxiety, depression, and insecurity. This has resulted in a limited education and a failed career. I have been unemployed for 3 years. I have tried to improve my situation, but sometimes effort is not enough. I have made peace with the possibility that I will die a virgin, alone, and poor. I am hoping for a miracle, but I know it is unlikely. Story 40. My willpower is nowhere near as strong as I thought. Story 41. I have accomplished nothing, and I am over halfway through life. Story 42. The only time I have felt loved is from pets, not from family or friends. This creates fear and loneliness that I believe will lead to my death in a few years. It does not matter how much love I have for others or my desire not to hurt them. Not feeling loved is overwhelming, and I think they will be better without me. I'm really sorry you're feeling so alone and scared. If you are thinking about harming yourself or believe you are in danger, please contact your local emergency services right now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency number or find a crisis hotline in your country. If possible, reach out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. Story 43. No matter how hard I try, I will always be a socially awkward penguin. That is not the advantage one might think it is. Story 44. After many years of dealing with people, I have realized that I prefer to be alone most of the time. I have little trust in anyone. Story 45. I'm very boring and unattractive. The only time a girl asked me out was because it was a prank. I don't know what to do with my life. Everything seems meaningless. My family and friends, the church I thought I loved, and school as well. I don't feel interested in living at all. I don't know why God would allow me to be born. I'm sorry you're feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger or thinking about harming yourself, please contact local emergency services now. If you can, reach out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. In the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you want, I can help you find local resources or someone to talk to. Story 46. Nobody has yet found me worthy of love. It is no longer painful. I am content to love from a distance. Story 47. The normal distribution is fighting my aspirations to be better. Story 48. Maybe not painful, but I am my biggest obstacle, enemy, hurdle, liability, and strength. Story 49. I will never know what happens after I die. Maybe I will rest in peace, or I will be reincarnated as an animal or as a human. Story 50. The majority of my family doesn't love or care for me. That's the price I pay for being the black sheep who refuses to partake in generational dysfunction and emotional abuse. Breaking the cycle is lonely at times. Story 51. That everyone will always have someone they love more than they love me. Story 52. No matter how much work I've done or how far I've come, nothing can make up for the lasting wound of never having experienced a loving family. Story 53. I can be very critical and sharp, which can hurt people's feelings and push them away when I choose the wrong time to speak. Story 54. My butthole will never be able to accommodate a full-sized billiard ball. Story 55. I am not actually as good a person as I like to think I am. Story 56. 1 drink, I am funny. 2 drinks, I am edgy. 3 or more drinks, and I become an irreverent asshole, but I am not clear-headed enough to notice. I am now 5 years sober. Story 57. I have the potential to make a difference in everything that is under my control. Story 58. I am not as smart as I thought. Some of the most painful reflections occurred when my ego was dying. Yet it still receives large boosts from people, so I must deflate it myself to avoid returning to narcissism. Story 59. I am fundamentally unlikable no matter what I do or try. I am now far more stoic, and I keep my distance from people. Honestly, even though it was crushing to realize at the time, I have never been happier. Story 60. I'm more likely to remain financially unstable for the rest of my life than to reach financial stability. Story 61. I am my own worst enemy. I sit in my own way. I hold myself back. I am the problem. Story 62. I am really sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services now, for example, 911 in the United States. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local emergency number or a crisis line. I can help find local resources or contacts if you want. Realistically, I will probably die by suicide. I have had so many close calls. I have lived with bipolar-induced depression for so long that the abyss is always in my peripheral vision and has been ever present for much of my life. Dying of old age seems unlikely. I do not expect to become anything great. I was never destined to be here for long. I do not know when the time will come, but it will probably be by my own hand. Story 63. I am painfully average, and I do not really care about anything. Story 64. I realized about 10 years ago that I must be pretty difficult to live with. I do not have any bad habits or much weirdness, but I shifted from thinking my husband was annoying to realizing that I can be annoying too. So it is probably not all on my husband, who is pretty great. Story 65. I will never have children. I do not have the financial and emotional resources to properly raise a child. And now it is too late because of my biological clock. Story 66. I have neglected myself my whole life. You should not care for others more than you care for yourself. Story 67. I'm really sorry you're feeling so hopeless. Are you thinking about ending your life or planning to hurt yourself right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number, for example, 911 in the US, or go to the nearest emergency room. In the US, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are outside the US, contact your local emergency services or your country's suicide prevention hotline. If you tell me where you are, I can help find local numbers. If you're not in immediate danger, please consider reaching out to someone you trust or a mental health professional. Try to remove access to anything you might use to harm yourself. Stay with another person if possible. And use grounding techniques, slow breaths. Name 5 things you can see. Hold a cold glass of water. You might also contact a crisis line, a doctor, or a therapist. You don't have to go through this alone. I can stay and listen, help you find local resources, or help make a short safety plan. Are you safe right now? Story 68. My uniquely off-putting personality eventually pushes everyone away. Story 69. I'm not good enough to ever be comfortable. I'll most likely be homeless for the majority of my life. Story 70. I am not mentally strong enough to have more children. The first one almost killed me. I love my daughter more than anything, and my biggest dream is to give her siblings. I just cannot go through sleep deprivation and babies with colic again. Story 71. I'm not that smart. I'm smart enough to achieve what I want, but I'm nowhere near as smart as I'd like to be. Story 72. How a lapse in financial judgment, a big missed opportunity, cost me over $1 million. I will never get that money back. Story 73. I have a phone addiction and I am not quite sure how to kick it. Story 74. I'm a bit of a pushover. I do complain sometimes, but I give people too much slack. Story 75. I'm not as smart as I thought I was, and I'm not as good a person as I had hoped. Story 76. I know that someday I will die, and I may not get closure or the chance to say goodbye to those I love before they are gone. I hope that I can give the world what I know I am capable of and leave something useful and meaningful. Story 77. One of the most painful realizations I've had is that sometimes I'm the one holding myself back. It's not the world. It's not bad luck. It's just me getting in my own way, and realizing that stings because you can't really blame anyone else. Story 78. I've had to come to terms with the fact that I will never live up to my potential. There are too many hurdles and not enough willpower. I am learning to accept and embrace a more realistic outlook. Story 79. Whatever I do, I still make enemies and have no idea why. Story 80. I am holding myself back. I really want to start creating content, especially as a stay-at-home mother, to bring in extra income without being unavailable to my husband and son. I look at social media and tell myself every day that there is room and money for all of us. Postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety took so much from me, and I am trying to find my way, but I make excuses. Partly it is because my attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has me stuck. But the rest is on me. The life I want for us is attainable. Everything we want is achievable if we get up and take action. Story 81. I do the bare minimum in everything, but if I truly did my best in every situation, I would exceed my expectations. In the end, I fear success, and as soon as things are going well, I sabotage my progress. Story 82. I am above the minority of smart people, and that will make me forever lonely and isolated. Story 83. I can sometimes be manipulative to get people to do what I want. I hate this about myself, and I try to monitor my behavior to avoid doing so. Story 84. All my hard work was for naught. I am back at the start of my career, and I am too tired and old to persevere. Story 85. I do not relate to the community I am in. Cannot escape. Story 86. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't wear it. Palagi kong nakikita ang sarili ko noon. Sinisi ko ang sarili ko dahil inakala kong hindi iyon sapat. Ngunit pinakita ng mga taong iyon sa akin na sapat ako. Hindi talaga ako ang para sa kanila at wala akong dapat patunayan sa kanila. Naisip ko na hindi ko kailangang pilitin ang sarili sa isang sitwasyon, relasyon, o papel na hindi bagay sa akin o hindi nagbibigay sa akin ng kaligayahan. Story 87. I did not turn out the way I wanted to. I was supposed to have a high-earning, exciting job. Instead, I developed a chronic illness. I have been the best possible mom I can be for my 3 children, and being content with everyday life is everything. Story 88. I will suffer a lot in the future. It is all downhill from here. Story 89. Getting older hits hard. Parents decline, and there is one fact. The day they will say goodbye is drawing near. Story 90. I want to do everything and often feel like I'm not great at any one thing. If I stick to only one thing, I feel unfulfilled. I love learning and constantly growing. Story 91. I am severely mentally ill, and I have my Bachelor of Science in Psychology. I preach mental wellness to others, but I cannot apply it to myself. Story 92. I created my own prison of shame so long ago I don't even remember what I was convicted for. Story 93. I don't think I can ever fall in love without the fear of losing myself. Story 94. I'm not okay. This doesn't mean I never get happy or never get what I want in life. It means my brain is really messed up because of things that happened to me, and that will forever change how I view and feel things, how I process emotions, and why I get seasonal depression at times during the year. It's sad when I think about it, but I'm okay and I'll be okay. Sometimes I think about ending my life, but I'm still here and I will be okay. If you are thinking about harming yourself or ending your life, please seek help now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are outside the United States, please contact your local emergency services or a local suicide prevention hotline. If you are in immediate danger, call emergency services now. Story 95. I give too much. Even after being hurt, I keep giving. Story 96. My dad may have passed this anger on to me, but I am the only one who keeps it a problem. Story 97. I self-sabotage everything good that happens to me. It's like I don't allow myself to get what I deserve. Story 98. I don't hurt others, so I end up getting hurt. Story 99. I am not attractive. That is the real explanation for being rejected so much, not the other rationalizations. Story 100. Fear has stopped me from achieving many wonderful things. Story 101. I have not achieved what I wanted when I was 18 or 20. Right now it feels like a large part of my life is falling apart, and I feel stuck and useless. Story 102. I need to believe in myself and start taking risks, because my comfort zone is destroying my potential. Story 103. Negative realization. I gave everything to someone who never respected me. Bending over backwards for him only made things worse. Positive realization. I am good enough and blessed. I need to work on myself to become healthy. Story 104. I should have been more open with my parents and listened to my heart instead of blindly following their wishes. It severely affected my education, and now I am far behind my contemporaries. Story 105. I will cut you out of my life with no explanation, as easily as I let you in. This is also known as ghosting. I am trying to do that less often because I paid the ultimate price. Story 106. I may be at the pinnacle of happiness, love, career, family, lifestyle, age and health, and it may all go downhill from here. All it takes is a phone call with bad news, a diagnosis or a mishap for the rug to be pulled out from under me and my life to change forever. That is how brutal life can be. Story 107. I am pretty alone, even though I thought I had friends. Story 108. I might be a little too dumb sometimes and emotionally unintelligent. Story 109. I have always been complimented on how articulate I am, but I am a poor communicator. I am defensive and explosive for no reason. My words are accusatory and hurtful. I only realized this after many failed friendships, and I do not know how to begin to change. Story 110. I am 100% different from who I was 10 years ago. The new me wants to be wild, but my former self made commitments. Story 111. I am autistic, and every now and then I have a moment when I think I will never have a normal life. This happens because I notice how much people change their behavior around me, and I hate it. Story 112. Self-sabotage. Even when I'm doing well and living my life as I normally would, I still find a way to mess it up. I only have a limited number of chances to get through life. Story 113. I value my lifestyle more than I value being honest with all the people I love. Story 114. I am genetically doomed in almost every respect, and my life was destined to be miserable from the moment it began. Story 115. Even after a lifetime of dedicated effort to avoid becoming the worst traits of my parents, some slipped in anyway. I will always be a work in progress. It is exhausting. Story 116. After I did everything for her, she still thinks we're just friends. I tried everything. I did what she liked, met her requests, made her laugh, and tried everything I could to make her love me. But she couldn't find that spark in me. I couldn't accept that fact. I was so desperate for her that I sacrificed my self-respect. I cried a lot. In the end, she was with another man, and I saw them together. She refused me, saying she doesn't want to be in any relationship with anyone, at least not this year. Story 117. The weight I have gained from having children and from illnesses causes others to be ashamed to take pictures with me. It makes me tear up when they look at pictures of me being full-figured. I walk a tightrope between weight loss, heart and stomach issues, stress, lack of support and attention, processing trauma, and constant responsibilities, while people in my life keep dropping their share of the load. Story 118. It's not painful. Everyone else seems jealous of me. They say I am the best and that nobody is better than me. Everyone wants to be my friend and spend time with me. Story 119. I hate being lonely. Where is my foster, adoptive, extrovert parent? I am so sick of caring for others. I just want someone for myself. Story 120. I use my intelligence as a weapon, and it causes more harm than good. This makes me realize I am not as smart as I think. I repeat this behavior. Story 121. My metabolism isn't slow. I just eat like a raccoon with a credit card. Story 122. I greatly fear losing total control in any space I occupy, yet I act as if control does not matter. I wish I could be more comfortable relinquishing control in the situations I encounter. Story 123. I am selfish, solitary, and thrill-seeking by nature, which makes it difficult to commit to other people. I will never be a community leader, a good manager, or hold any position where I consistently have to put others before myself. I would like to think I would sacrifice a kidney for a dying loved one, but I know deep down that I probably would not. The only exception might be animals. I am willing to sacrifice a great deal to make my pets' lives even 1% happier. Admittedly, I am not sure why I have this exception, but I feel that it does not redeem me much. Story 124. I decided to stay quiet or walk away from many arguments when I should have stood up for myself and spoken up. It might seem small now until you realize how much you have buried inside yourself. Story 125. A lot of what looks like me taking the high road is actually me being afraid of confrontation, because it is easier to look away and say it is not a big deal. Story 126. Being meek put me into many bad situations that left me hurt. I was terrified of any confrontation. I finally learned to stand up for myself, to say no, and when necessary to say hell no. Story 127. I have chronic anxiety, yet I always convince myself that I do not, and stop taking my medication when I feel better. Story 128. I will have a successful and fulfilling career in my next lifetime. It is not working out in this one, but in exchange I have a happy marriage and children. Story 129. I have to be careful not to break myself because, really, fixing me is up to no one else. But what about therapy? You have to decide to enter therapy in the first place. You have to decide to accept the help and advice offered to you. Is it easy? Absolutely not, but that is all right. It is like taking on a new hobby or skill. You will not be good at it right away, but the more you stick with it and learn, the better you will get over time. I have also created small rituals that remind me I am just human and nothing will ever go 100% for me. 99% is just as good, and so is 98%. When you fall into a deep hole of negative emotions, remember to take a shovel with you. Sit in that dark hole as long as you need to heal, but have a shovel to dig yourself out when you are ready. Story 130. Will the surgeries and the pain never end? Story 131. Even though I have a good life, it could have been much better and more successful if I had more discipline. Story 132. I lost a lot of potential and opportunities because I thought I was a lucky person who would always have great opportunities and that the qualities that made me special would remain without effort. Story 133. The world is fully apathetic, and people are an exact distortion of their own morals. Story 134. No matter your age, bones will break. I have 3 fractures in my wrist. Story 135. 1. I probably will never be able to quit nicotine unless someone locks me in a basement for 6 months, because I have no self-control. 2. I will never be on the same page as my husband faith-wise, and I know it hurts him, but it is something I cannot fake. 3. I am very introverted and afraid of rejection, so I push away any potential friends. I probably will not change because I am stubborn and set in my ways. Story 136. I love being a beginner and starting new hobbies because I have the most fun when I allow myself to be bad at something new. It is fun because I do not expect to be good at it. Once I do something for a while and begin to get good, I start to have expectations of myself and it becomes less fun. Story 137. That my chronic pain will get worse as I get older, and there is nothing I can do about it, so I must accept that I am fully disabled. Story 138. I am very petty when it comes to relationships and get annoyed when people make things seem so difficult. Story 139. I can be manipulative in my romantic relationships. I have realized this but have not yet figured out how to stop. Most of the time, I do not intend to be manipulative and only notice it later. I am working on myself and trying to change. Too many relationships have ended because of this, and my current relationship is moving in that direction. Story 140. I lack discipline. I grew up in a culture that emphasized it. I was always studying hard, focused and dedicated, but now I feel burned out. Story 141. I tend to put others first and am now extremely codependent. Story 142. I have had to work on almost every part of my character. It has been a painful but necessary process. Story 143. I have the power to make my life better, but I do not. Story 144. Although I was born in the United States, my ethnicity will always be threatened by others simply because my culture, language, and lifestyle are completely different from those who colonized indigenous lands. Story 145. I am obsessed with why things happen as a way of avoiding dealing with and being in the present. Story 146. I'm always going to be slow. I think and walk slowly, and neither can be changed. Story 147. I cannot just let things go, especially if there is no logical reason for it. Story 148. A friend once said to me, I have known you for 20 years, but I do not feel like I really know you. Without hesitation, I said, I am not going to let anyone know who I am until I know who I am. Story 149. I complain about everything and hate that I do. Even though I am aware of it, I cannot seem to stop. Story 150. That I am lovable despite the way my birth family insists on scapegoating me as the problem. Story 151. I always postpone things until tomorrow, but it never comes. Story 152. I cannot take care of myself yet, but I am working on it. I am a work in progress. Story 153. I will never be equal to others physically because chemotherapy damaged my body twice as much as usual. I underwent chemotherapy twice, and at one point I received the most intensive treatment. My bones are weak and fragile. Story 154. I do not believe in or trust myself when it comes to making decisions in life. Story 155. My jealousy of anyone who has children stems from bad relationships, miscarriages, and infertility. I am especially jealous of my sister and cousin, who both have children, financial stability, and do not have to work. Jealousy is poison. It keeps you focused on others and stuck. Plus, it is disingenuous. Story 156. I don't want to be alone. I want to share my life with a partner. Story 157. A drawback of emotional detachment as a defense mechanism is that you become a hermetically sealed fortress that no one attempts to enter, and you do not notice when they knock. Story 158. I am a people pleaser. I became too attached to that person, and I hate it. Story 159. I make friends much more easily with people who are 15 years older than me than with people my own age, 21 years old. Can be very lonely. I notice this most when dating because I want to date older people, but they often say I am too young for them. Story 160. All this time I was still the person I swore to destroy. Story 161. I lacked empathy for a long time. Friends left because I was arrogant, self-centered, and unaware of it. I started therapy about a decade ago and had many realizations. I even wondered if I was a mild narcissist. I felt ashamed. I'm better now, but still working on it. Story 162. I wasted my 20s and early 30s, but I am better off now and getting my life together. It just took me some time. Laughing out loud. Story 163. My attention deficit hyperactivity disorder will not go away, nor will the cycles of depression and despair. Time is passing faster than I can process. I will never be able to do or learn as much as I have always wanted. I am sorry you are feeling this way. If you are in immediate danger or have thoughts of harming yourself, please call emergency services now. If possible, reach out to someone you trust or a mental health professional for support. In the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, please contact your local crisis services. Story 164. Siguro, tatanda na lang ako mag-isa. Sobrang hirap yata makahanap ng taong mag-alaga at magmamahal sa akin. Story 165. I am not nearly as smart or capable as everyone thinks I am. Story 166. I am broken and bent, but I maintain a facade so people see me as normal. Story 167. I crave connection and validation from others so intensely that it pushes people away. I constantly feel like an alien. Story 168. When I realized I was an alcoholic, it felt like someone close to me had died. The first 2 months of sobriety were the hardest of my life. But now, 13 years on, I know it was the most joyful decision I could have made. Story 169. I expect far too much from myself. Perfection is impossible, but I still feel terrible when I make a mistake. Story 170. That I will never grow tall and will remain short and overweight with a shrill baby voice. Story 171. After my ex cheated on me and before I had time to heal, they dated 2 or 3 people. I always believed my relationship would end if someone cheated on me again. Story 172. No one is going to live my life for me. No one will swoop in and do the hard things that make life worth living. I have to work for those things in the long term. Story 173. First of all, what a deep, heart-wrenching question. The most painful realization about myself is my bad luck. Story 174. I can get super irritated with people and talk shit behind their backs when I think they are dicks or idiots, especially when I will not see them again. I am a bartender, not for long though. Story 175. I have a bad habit of procrastinating, but I'm working my way out of it. Story 176. I sometimes notice that I parent my children the same way I was parented. Even though I swore I would not do or say the things that were done or said to me. It is not all the time, but when I do, I immediately feel guilty, and that guilt turns into resentment and anger toward my parents and my upbringing. Story 177. I have a very dysfunctional and destructive way of coping with grief. Something in me likes it that way and would rather not get better. Story 178. I spent too much time weighing the pros and cons instead of seizing opportunities. I should have just gone for it. Story 179. I have wronged people in profound ways that cannot be undone. Story 180. I would decide against my better judgment because I was inclined to give the benefit of the doubt. Now I realize it and am working to improve my boundaries and to voice my needs. Story 181. I feel pathetic and yet my ego is inflated. I realized this recently because I started liking someone. I got so used to people liking me that I refused to tell her how I feel. We have been chatting for the past few months as part of a TikTok streak, and I feel terrible when she does not respond. Every time I wake up, she is the first person on my mind. Even when I am busy, I think of her. I feel pathetic when I wait for a response to a message I sent 7 hours ago. I reply instantly to keep the conversation going only to be left unread. How do I stop this? Story 182. I always thought I was a good person, but I have hurt the people around me who loved me the most, and regret is eating away at me more and more every day. Story 183. I think too highly of myself and expect others to do things exactly as I would. I am a petty tyrant. An only child who moved out and traveled the world when I was young and who built my own wealth. I expect or demand too much of others, often without noticing until I am in the middle of doing or saying it. I hate this about myself. I do not wish others harm. I am not easily angered and I am not generally discontent. I do get frustrated when people are inefficient or make work more difficult. Instead of letting it go, I take over or become the general, as my wife says. Story 184. I am the one who keeps everyone at a distance. I recently realized that the closer I get to someone, the more I begin to see the relationship as potentially abusive and retreat into myself. It feels like a defense mechanism or survival strategy based on past experiences. I realize I am perpetuating my own problems and do not know how to break free. Realizing this gives me hope and feels like a step forward. Story 185. I have become very vain about my appearance, and it has begun to affect other parts of my life. I know I am not ugly, but I am obsessed with looking extremely beautiful, and it is destroying me inside and out. I think it might kill me someday. Story 186. I'm closer to my date of death than to my birthday, and it scares the bejesus out of me. Story 187. I will never be satisfied with any of my achievements. Nothing is good enough, no matter how rare or difficult it was to achieve. 5 minutes later, it's on to the next. Story 188. Most things scare me, and I don't think I'll ever be fully comfortable with myself. While I was using drugs, I felt normal, and now I mainly hide behind my headphones. I feel most like myself when I am at home researching and thinking. Story 189. I have lost many friends because I do not know how to be a friend. Story 190. The reason so many friends treated me poorly was my fault. If you do not respect yourself, people see that and will not respect you either. They can walk all over you, and you appear pathetic when you forgive them no matter what. Endless patience is a bad thing. Working on boundaries has changed my life and given me friends who truly respect and love me and one another. Story 191. It was not necessarily painful because I was glad to finally have this realization, even though it took me a long time. For me, sleep is everything. It is the difference between feeling like a 10 and feeling like a 5. I lived too many days at a 5, fooling myself that I was being more productive. I became exponentially more productive and happier once I started honoring my sleep. Story 192. I can never find true love, no matter how hard I try. Story 193. I am not normal, yet I do not exactly know what is wrong with me. Story 194. I am an introvert, and that's okay. I don't need to live up to my mother's expectations of how I should be. 54. I don't give a shit. Story 195. I feel unlovable. I am only considered desirable, not genuinely loved. I fear I will likely never become a mother, and that is an extremely painful thing to accept as a woman. Story 196. I'm codependent and will always have a much harder time leaving bad relationships because being alone is heartbreaking and would only confirm my mother's belief that everyone has a good time until I walk into the room. This reinforces the belief that something is wrong with me and that I will never fit in no matter what I do. Story 197. My 12-year-old self knew my life would be going down the drain. Now it is different from what I had imagined, but it is still terrible overall. There is not a single positive thing other than having a job and an apartment. Story 198. My inability to accept help or charity caused me to not finish college, take on unnecessary debt, and be far less successful than I could have been. Story 199. I have several disorders. I will never be mentally well. Medication and therapy only help so much. Story 200. Dear Jesus, with 8 billion people in the world, how is it possible that there is no one like me? I trudge onward toward my destiny. Story 201. How insecure I can be and how that affects my surroundings. Story 202. I am my own worst enemy and did not deserve what happened to me in childhood. Those experiences turned my brain into a giant self-destructive machine that has been progressively ruining my life. I am not as bad a person as I tell myself, and I deserve to love myself. Story 203. People do not like me as a friend. They may be friendly acquaintances but not actual friends. Story 204. When I am having an anxiety attack, I am choosing to stay that way. It will stop when I decide. Story 205. The only reason some people keep me in their lives is that they know I will not stand up for myself or fight back. Therefore, they can use and abuse me repeatedly. I am dispensable to them, and losing me will not bother them, but it will keep me up at night. I end up apologizing even when I have nothing to apologize for, simply because I feel uncomfortable being on bad terms with them. Story 206. I will never be very rich or successful. I want a big house and nice cars, but that will not happen. Story 207. You cannot change the past, but you can change your future. Story 208. I feel less driven than others. I know comparison is the thief of joy, but I could push harder to accomplish my dreams. I just don't. Story 209. I might not get the chance to grow in the ways I need to. Story 210. I have spent most of my life in self-hatred. I have already lived 13 years in a city I absolutely despise, and I know I will never be able to move because of financial problems. I am old, and it feels like my life is over. I am sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are thinking about harming yourself, please contact your local emergency services or crisis line immediately. In the United States, you can call 988. If you want to talk more, I am here to listen. Story 211. I'm good at most things except getting a job. I always seem to be in the top 20 to 30% at things I try. I'm not saying I'm amazing, just typically better than average. I graduated 2 years ago with a physics degree. I was told it opens many doors, but I can't convince anyone to respond to my applications, let alone offer me a job. I've even been using the career department staff to tailor curriculum vitae and application forms, but no luck. All the people I helped with coursework have jobs, some very high-paying. None of them care about the work beyond the salary. You can do everything right and still get nothing. Story 212. I could have gotten so much more if my social anxiety hadn't stopped me. Story 213. I am not a girl, and this is not something I can come to terms with and keep to myself. I will have to deal with it in public, where others can see and form opinions, which is difficult, especially given the state of my country right now. Story 214. Not everyone is meant to turn out well or even to be happy, and I am one of those who did not and will not. Story 215. That it does not get any better, and I have to accept everything. Story 216. My mother will never understand me, even now that I am in my late 20s. Story 217. It took me far too long to realize I am more than the person I am with. My partner was complaining about a colleague who only talked about men, and I instantly thought back to my early 20s and saw myself. Then it sank in that I had believed my worth depended on the man I was with. I had a traumatic childhood, and I am still paying for it in my 40s. Story 218. I have made some bad decisions, but they have led to amazing things like my son, so it is complicated. Story 219. I will make irrational, permanent decisions based on temporary feelings. Story 220. I am a mirror, and my sense of self will change depending on the people I spend the most time with. Story 221. I have no idea who I am. I tried to fill out the About Me section of my curriculum vitae but could not. The same happened with the Skills and Qualities section. When I attempted self-discovery worksheets, I still could not begin. It feels like I spent so long being someone else that I forgot to be myself. And now I do not know what to do. Story 222. I should have listened to the people who advised me to take care of my teeth when I was younger. Now I have serious dental issues I'm hoping to fix someday. Story 223. I always thought of myself as a very human person, meaning empathetic and easygoing. I took pride in this. At some point in therapy, I realized I would get out of my way to avoid confrontation. I constantly avoided anything uncomfortable. That avoidance was the basis of my empathy and easygoing nature. I could not speak for myself when I thought it would not please others. I am working on this now, learning to stand up for myself while remaining bubbly and laid back. Story 224. I just learned that a man went through my generative pre-trained transformer chat history and I realized I was the toxic one in the relationship. Story 225. No matter what I do or what medicine I take, I will never be truly 100% happy because my brain and body are against me. Story 226. One day I will be dead and gone. Everything I am holding means nothing. Story 227. I lack talent and envy others so much that I sometimes genuinely despise them for it. Story 228. Because of past traumas, I will never be as creatively motivated as my younger self. This is frustrating. If those events had not occurred, I would be a decent artist and would know how to play several musical instruments by now. I had already started and practiced regularly until I was forced to stop. Story 229. I wasted 20 years in a career surrounded by people I hated. I found a career where I do not have to be around anyone at all. My quality of life has improved so much. I do not think I have ever actually been happy until now. No more covering other people's problems. All the stress in my life came from other people. Toxic workplaces that claim to be a family are code for taking full advantage of you when they need to. Story 230. I will probably never be engaged or married. I have been single most of my life and have never had a serious relationship. I get sad when I think about this. Story 231. Maybe I am average and not the genius my family thought I was. Story 232. I am in the wind-down phase of my career and am about as high as I will get. The thought of artificial intelligence and outsourcing ramping up terrifies me. I am too old to start over, change course, and continue. Having my career snatched away just before the finish line is my biggest nightmare. Story 233. I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. That sounds painful. Are you thinking about hurting yourself or planning to end your life right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number or, in the United States, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you're elsewhere, please contact local emergency services or a local crisis line. If you want, I can help find resources or someone to contact now. Clean text for Azure text-to-speech. Despite all the work, the medication, and the therapy, I still don't want this life and am just waiting to be alone enough that nobody sees where I went. Story 234. I don't have the energy to do more. Description of where I am and what I have. Story 235. In every relationship I have been in, I have put up with too much for too long and eventually exploded, releasing all those bottled emotions. I have never experienced peaceful conflict resolution in my life. I do not think I will ever have a truly healthy and happy relationship. Story 236. I can't trust myself to be a good person. That would be okay if I saw myself as, or were more comfortable being, a piece of shit person. I pretend, wish, and want to be a good man. But the older I get, the more I realize that I can't guarantee or trust myself to be the man I want to be. While it's almost never intentional, so many of my bad decisions in life have caused pain to those I cared about. It was never an if I do A and it will cause pain to X, so I'm going to do it type decision. But in the end, when doing A regularly causes pain to X and you're smart enough to see the correlation and you continue to do A, you realize intentions be damned, you are making the decisions of a bad man. Life would be so much easier if I could embrace being a monster. But I refuse to do that. So instead I hate myself and keep myself isolated from others so I don't hurt them or let them down. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.